Welcome, angels, to the channel of Angel Guidance with myself, the Spirit of Jade. So today, the message I wanted to share, well, the video which is going to encompass around my series of growing and evolving into the person you want to be, is to reflect on trust. Trust within ourselves, trust within the people around us, trusting that we are led. In my last video, I spoke of trust within the beings that are supporting you or grounding you and just around you at all times. I wanted to express how my journey and how I've moved through these experiences and become the person that, of course, I'm not 100% there, but where I feel a real sense of peace within myself. Trust for me is that freedom to be where you can be yourself because you are trusting, because you are trusting in the people you surround yourself with, you're trusting in your team, you're trusting in yourself to make the right decisions. And with trusting and moving through and evolving into the person that you dream of being, it's that you have to trust that the choices you are making are in alignment. Mentioning alignment, it always makes me think that when I first started out on this journey, I thought alignment was clear cut. It was something that just seemed completely right, that when it was shown to you, it was shown to you clear. But when you're still navigating through understanding yourself and understanding how to trust in that faith, how to walk the path that makes no sense to anyone else but yourself, although sometimes it doesn't even make sense to yourself, to be honest. But when I reflect on that, I think alignment can be messy because you're kind of like moving back and forth, you're trying to navigate between new situations, new understandings, and that can be really difficult. So this is the importance of giving yourself grace and realising that you are experiencing this for the first time. Although when I think about saying that and I think about experiencing something for the first time, if you're reliving a certain experience, this is where reflecting with yourself is vital. You're going to give yourself more insight into where you're playing the part in a way and where you're operating from, which finds yourself in these certain situations once again. So back to the trust. Trusting within yourself can be so difficult. For myself, when I've thought about trusting, I'm usually given little signs, and usually you will be too. When I speak about signs to people, a lot of them always say, oh, but you're looking for them. And I'm like, there's looking for them and then them being just smacked in my face. Like, there's no avoiding the certain signs that we get, and sometimes it's a piecing together of things. I think spirit, God, the angels can get very creative with certain messages. I know for myself, I tend to listen to music as a form of messages. I think people that are channeling through songs are such a powerful tool for reflection, understanding yourself, realising where it is that certain emotions are being stored, because that song or those melodies evoke it within you and kind of wake things up. And really understanding that gives you more insight into yourself. Seeing as I brought up about the signs, I want to stress that you shouldn't be looking into things too deeply. Don't be allowing yourself to get spiraled out of control and thinking that everything needs to be analysed, because I've been in that space and it can be daunting in a way because you feel like you're not acting as you're supposed to, but sometimes these signs stumble across you because they're just little spots of confirmation and little messages that are coming from, you know, that support system around you. Back to this trust element of this episode, I wanted to emphasise that fear and trust can be quite prevalent together. When I've experienced trust, and especially sometimes still to this day, but most of the time I'm surrendered, I have to make rational decisions, of course, and trying to weigh out the options of things is important, but trusting that I'm making a choice with my highest good, trusting that the signs will stumble across my path, that they'll be put on the way for me to see. And in trusting that, we move into a space where we're realising that things are aligning for us. We have to believe to achieve, as they say, and remembering that you have a part to play in that is really important. And of course, fear is one of those functions that is here to protect us. It's a normal bodily function that helps our nervous system regulate. It helps us understand what to trust, what not to trust. And that can be very difficult to do when, again, evolving into the person you want to be hasn't had the opportunity to do that. So something that's really helped me trust myself day to day is really understanding that these choices are with my highest good, and realising that the choices I'm making are being made from a place of supporting my future self, loving my past self, and being honest with my present self, because that honesty is something that will help me move towards the truth, move towards a more honest version of myself for my own clarity, but also for when I'm out in the world as well. I think one of the reasons that we find ourselves in situations with people where we don't feel appreciated, we feel undervalued, where we're being disrespected or we're disrespecting ourselves, is because we haven't been honest from the get-go. And that can be obviously another learning curve, which is wonderful in its sense, but it's also very detrimental to our showing up in the world, let's say. For myself, some of the things that I've experienced has made me hibernate, which I think hibernation is a great thing to do. I live in a climate where we have 4 seasons of the year, so hibernation is 2 months of those for me, and that's a good way for me to reflect, and, you know, observing nature as you do, just to see how the steady growth moves. It's not something that's abrupt, it's that we have to move through things, you know, stripping back the layers, which I love to speak about, because we are so layered as individuals. We have so much to think about, so much that we feel, so much to express. And this is why I think being able to articulate yourself well, to be able to have the words to express yourself, to be in spaces where you're allowed to be yourself, to trust that you are being seen, is priceless. So my experience with trust, which I do realise I want to share my personal journey on here, because I think it brings more truth to my page, to my channel I should say, and I think I like being honest about where I've came from, because I am proud of that. And I think it's also important for people to realise that life isn't always going to stay that way. I know what it's like to be in the darkest of depths and, you know, you feel like life is just in a complete mess. It doesn't feel like worth living. But it is. It truly is. And it takes time to get to this point. It's a journey. It's a process. It's unravelling yourself through all the mess and realising that you are worth being here, that there is no accident to you being here. So when trusting yourself, I want to speak about the element of who we have around us, who it is that we allow to infiltrate that trust. And it's only natural that people who genuinely love and care for us want the best for us. But trying to navigate between people who are genuine and people who are trying to dismantle your trust, you've got to be cautious and discerning as to who those people are. Of course, once you find out someone isn't trusting, please get rid of them. They're operating from a space that you don't want to engage with, because it will just cause you more issues in the long run. And one of my issues with that I've experienced is trying to fix people, trying to be the person who helps people. You can't do that. It's not your place to do it, and you may plant a seed, but don't wait around for it to grow if you know that someone isn't willing to just yet. So yes, back to my point. Understanding that feedback and criticism from the right people is important. You know, allow yourself to take on new opinions, allow yourself to trust other people that you believe have your highest good in mind, and understand that those can be very beneficial. However, your opinion is the last opinion that you should take on. Your choice is the final verdict. And when you realise that, you move into a space where you honour yourself, you value your wishes enough to not put anyone else's above that. And that can bring some people into a space of not understanding you from a perspective, but, you know, agree to disagree. And that's your prerogative, that's your choice, and rightfully so. That might feel uncomfortable at the time, that might be something that makes you feel a bit exiled from a certain community at the time. It might make you feel a bit like you have to hibernate, as I said, and hibernation is one of those things that we are supposed to do. In my eyes, I believe we're supposed to do it. I think it's good for you to recalibrate. I think it's important for you to reflect. Reflecting is one of those things where you give yourself the time to understand where you've been, understand where you are and where you're going. And only you can really sit with yourself and do that, because you're with you all the time. You know, you see all the little parts of yourself, you understand the parts. Well, I say understand, not many of us understand ourselves. I don't understand myself to the fullest extent, but trying and reflecting allows us more opportunity to do that. I think this is where I get into this mode of the annoyance of distractions and realizing that what we're giving our time away to is stunting our growth. One of the biggest ones for me is social media. And I mean, trust kind of intertwines with this as well, because are you trusting yourself enough to, you know, have the courage to say, no, that's enough social media for me? Or are you too trusting in the case where you believe everything you see on the internet, and then you end up comparing yourself and undervaluing yourself, when in reality, again, you haven't seen all the steps that that person or that group or that society has taken to get to where they are. And sometimes it's misrepresented, and you're misrepresenting yourself as well. So it seems that I'm moving on to a space of reflection again, which I did touch on in journaling, but journaling in that respect on my episode 1 was more to see how you're feeling, channeling out emotions to really give yourself that space, allow yourself that time to really analyse yourself, which can be very difficult to do. Really being honest with yourself, believing that we can trust ourselves when we've been taught to trust everything else externally. We don't listen to the internal dialogue, and that can be quite detrimental to our future and to how we operate in the world. So moving out of that talking process, I wanted to express that my next episode will be on honesty within ourselves, reflecting on how it is that we can be honest with ourselves and trusting ourselves more in that element as well, because being honest is very difficult, but we move into a space of integrity where we're honest with where we are, what it is that we're doing wrong, what it is we're doing right, you know, giving ourselves that credit where it's due. So in saying that, thank you for watching. If you did like the video, do comment, like, share or subscribe, and I'd welcome any feedback, any comments. I'd love to hear from anyone. Have a wonderful donut whenever you're watching. Lots of love, angel guidance.